coming up.
There was a lot of interference on the baby monitor. And then all of a sudden, I start hearing and feeling scratches on the underside of the mattress.
Welcome to Unholy Vibes. I am joined today again by an old friend, a new friend, technically, Anna. Anna has been on the show before, and we had discussed doing a part two. And Anna, if I remember correctly, it was mostly you wanted to separate some stuff, mostly due to having your kids around. There were some things maybe a little too intense, too spooky. Am I in the right?
Yeah, and it's kind of regarding their grandparents, and so I didn't wanna put, weird ideas or, anything like that in their heads about grandparents, so just
Right.
kinda wanna keep it separate.
Fair enough. Okay. Well, let's dive in. Let's recap what we spoke about last time. Last time we spoke about your mimic story, which
Mhm,
ended up being, in my eyes, the least intense of all your stories. And it was
mhm.
quite short. And that's okay because you came at us with some bangers back to back to back. And I know you're probably like, well, they were a little traumatic, so I don't know if they're bangers, but they are bangers to me and to those that are listening. And we love a good traumatic story on the show. I'm just being silly, but let's dive in a little bit more. We talked about the mimic. We talked about a vision that you had or
Mhm,
something. We talked about terrifying, spooky, scary little fingies on the door in your
mhm.
childhood home, one of your childhood homes, and a ghost boy. Very grudge like, by the way. I was thinking about that. I'm like,
Eerie.
this is literally just the grudge.
If his hair would have been longer, that's exactly what that would have been. It was yeah. Mm,
So Anna's had some apparitions, some visitations, some spooky visions. I want to dive in a little bit more because you also talked about some potentially haunted or possessed objects in your home and
mhm.
some other things. You said the lady with the I assume it was a lady, but we just only ever saw hands, right? Just a hand. For some reason I imagined it had like lady.
The hand that goes like this? So,
Yes.
it always gave me a male presence vibe.
Okay, good. For some reason, I was thinking there was a woman, but male presence, masculine fingies on the door.
Right.
Okay, so you said that those followed you around for a while, if I'm remembering correctly.
So, the hand that I saw was just in the home that I, lived in with my parents while I was in high school.
Okay.
Prior to that, though, there was a voice and breathing on my face, and that was before we moved to the South, and I was in my other childhood home. So, very similar, slightly different.
That's just me confusing stuff, which it'd be like that. I
That's
do be
that's
confusing stuff. So the point is, though, I think you've always had a sensitivity to things like these and you're more prone, is what it seems like. Talk to me about this idea of you alluded almost at like a cult like organization. Let's hear more about that.
So I've done a lot of thinking about this, and kind of trying to piece timelines together as best I can because a lot of my childhood I've just kind of I don't remember correctly because I've blocked a lot of it out. However, when I was in middle school, my father had joined a fraternal organization called Freemason.
Okay.
And right around that time is when all of this started. So
Interesting.
that's when I started hearing the voice at 6 a.m. on the dot. Like my room went down, I had my bedroom in the basement and it would be pitch dark. You could not see a single thing. Like I couldn't even, if I looked over to the side, I couldn't even see my nightlight. And which by the way was touch activated. So I couldn't even see my nightlight. It was that dark. Here I would hear a voice whisper, Anna, wake up, and I would feel warm air on my face. And so that all started happening around the time that he had joined this organization.
The Freemasons.
Correct.
Okay. Interesting, interesting. Now, I know what I've heard of the Freemasons. Everyone's probably heard of what the Freemasons are to an extent. I've never
Mhm.
heard of spooky things coming from it. So that's interesting.
Well, there for a while, I actually did a fairly deep dive into the Freemasons, and it's very interlinked with the occult. You may know that they do rituals. They can't speak about what kinds of rituals that they do. Other than those that I will say that they will have, like, family days, sometimes, like, sort of a family day, and you can kinda sit in on some of these things, and it's not like a full-blown, like, ritual. I'm sure it's nothing like what actually goes on when nobody else is there other than the member. You kinda get to see them, like, they have specific seats that they sit in, they have specific wardrobes that they wear, specific things that they use, to do all these things, and it's very orchestrated. It's very creepy, and every single time I've been in Masonic Lodge, it has had when you go into a place, I can't remember if you're sensitive or not. I wanna say that you said that you're not very sensitive.
I'm not at all. Not
But when
really.
a sensitive right. So when a sensitive person goes into a place, they can sometimes pick up, like, on different energy. And sometimes those energies are not so nice, not so comfortable, not so welcoming. And that was always the feeling that I got anytime that I walked into a Masonic.
Interesting. Did anything ever actually like, anything spooky ever happen while at one of those places or just general bad vibes?
No, I don't remember anything specific happening. I just remember getting a feeling like I wasn't supposed to be there.
Right.
And it just felt like what's the term that people say now? It gave the ick.
It gave the ick.
It gave the ick.
Yeah, no, yeah, that's real.
Yeah. So I had this experience one time. I had a boyfriend in high school and his brother's bedroom, I could not step foot in it because it was just an all over negative
Okay.
vibe. And it was almost that bad walking into a Masonic lodge.
Just okay, so bad vibes, maybe some weird intent like that. That's
Mhm.
interesting, that's interesting. And you said that you grew up religious, if I remember correctly, right? So you were probably attending some sort of church even at the time that your parents were or your dad was in the
Yeah.
Freemasons? Sorry.
Yep, we were attending a Lutheran church at the time.
Yeah. So you're already going to church, practicing Christianity, and then they're like, "Hey, let's also add on Freemasonry." Well, double decker. Interesting.
Right.
Well, I don't think often about the Freemasons. I just don't even think about them. I see the lodges here and there, when you're out and about, and there's I feel like it's such like a dying thing. Like, I feel like there are less and less of them as time goes on. And maybe I'm wrong. I don't know their numbers. Again, I don't even think about them.
Right. I mean, I can't confirm or deny that part. I just know that whoever is part of the Masons, because they're very particular about who they allow into their organization.
Hmm,
So whoever's in the Masons, I not very many of them leave. Some of them may leave, but not very many of them leave.
right.
So, and I remember I worked with a guy that I had gone to high school with, and he was like, "Hey, your dad's in the Masons, right?" And I was like, "Yeah." He goes, "Well, I was thinking about joining that." And I'm like, "Okay, well, let me talk to him and I'll see if he can get you the hookup." Before I had any like real thought put into it and I hadn't thought about the vibes and stuff like that. I was like, "Whatever, I know somebody. Let me see what I can do for you." And I think he ended up going to one of their get-togethers and I saw him after that and he goes, "Yeah, that's not for me." And I said, "Oh, okay."
Now that I think about it, I'm pretty sure I saw on a Reddit thread there was like recordings of some of their like meetings and stuff. I
Mhm.
think it was the Masons. And while weird, I mostly, yeah, it's just weird. While it was weird, it was relatively harmless. There was no like blood rituals, that I saw. Again, but this was like, yeah, this is like high level. I'm pretty sure it was the Masons. I wish I could remember a few months ago. But it was literally just a bunch of old dudes being like, "And now this, and now that, and now this," and it was all, like, just a lot of symbolism, but whatever, right? To each their own. So you think, though, that this started when the Freemasonry came into your family's life, and then it continued, and did your you said it was your dad, right?
And then my grandfather was actually part of the Masons as well. So it was both of them that were in the Masons.
Okay, okay. Apologies for
Yeah.
my
Oh
misremembering.
no, you're good. I didn't mention my grandfather yet. So
Okay.
you didn't.
So, did they stop going, and then some stuff stopped in your life? The breathing and the talking?
So
Where does it all end up?
the breathing part, the 6 a.m. occurrence stopped when we moved to the South because I grew up in a small town in Northwestern Iowa. And so that happened up there. And then we moved down here. Shortly after we moved down here, my grandfather ended up passing away. And then so as far as my grandfather's involvement in the Masons, obviously that kind of
Right.
was no longer
Right.
a thing. But my father continued. He found a lodge down here. And, I had those instances that we talked about on the last one. But what was really interesting to me is when I ended up cutting off my parents the first time and some of the things that happened at that point, that's when I kind of was like, hold on a second. Something not too cool is happening right now.
Tell me
So,
more.
okay.
You don't have to if you're not comfortable, just so you know.
No,
If there
no,
was
you're
a
no,
okay,
I
I'm just
don't
trying to
have
piece
all.
all the puzzle pieces together here, you know?
It's kind of a lot, and honestly, I don't think about it being so much because, I lived through it, and then I just sit there and think, "Wow, that's really crazy," but, I mean, I go through crazy things all the time, so it doesn't really faze me anymore,
Yeah.
but
It's all retrospective, you're like, "That was kinda messed up."
yeah, yeah, and then once I make that realization, I'm just like, "Oh, okay, now I can move on," you know? But then I tell somebody else, and they're like, "What?"
You said
So
what?
exactly, exactly. So one of the thing that made me start putting the pieces together, it was back in 2017. There was some drama with my ex-husband and I. We ended up, trying to make it work and everything. And there was one night where I woke up. Well, first, let me back up a little bit. First of all, I had seen the door open slightly, just very, very slowly from across the room. It's dark down there. The only light that was in the room was from the TV. So I see this door, it was cracked open. I see it kind of start opening like this. And then when I looked, we turned the light on, it hadn't moved. So it makes you think that it's just a trick of the eye, but I know what I saw.
Right,
And
right.
then on
It's
top of
and
that,
and
there was
here's the thing,
mhm,
sometimes doors be moving.
mhm.
They sometimes they do. So you definitely could have seen it. It may not have been in the trick of the eye, but sometimes when you leave a door open, let's say the AC kicks on, the draft is gonna move it. I just have to also kind of approach from that point of view as well. Could have
No,
been any
yeah, it's fair. That's fair. I will say that I don't remember the AC kicking on at that particular time. There was a cat in the home, but the cat was nowhere to be found, nowhere near the vicinity of the door. And it was very much so like it felt like, oh, never mind, that's just my mind playing tricks on me, sort of thing. And then after that, we ended up going to bed and we lay down. There was interference on the baby monitor. A lot of interference on the baby monitor, which I thought
No.
was really
No, thank you.
yes. And I was like, "My baby's up there. This is crazy." So I had him go check it out. Everything seemed fine. And I was like, "Okay, well, I can finally go to bed." I couldn't sleep. And so I was laying there. He was passed out, like, I mean, out cold. And then all of a sudden, I start hearing and feeling scratches on the underside of the mattress. And I tried so hard to wake this man up, and he would not wake up. I ended up telling him the next morning, but that's not even it. That's not even the scariest part. Hold on. It gets worse.
I already
It just
have the
keeps
chills.
compounding. It keeps compound I'm telling you, something really coming for me that day. So, when I finally did fall asleep, I dreamt about a demon attached to my back, and I couldn't get him off. And so, I wake up after that, and I'm going, "Okay, that's entirely too many things happening in one night for it to be a coincidence." And that's when it started kinda clicking for me.
It's definitely spooky. Okay, so I don't know which part to dive into first. Let's talk about the demon
Okay.
in your dream. Dreams are dreams. Sometimes they mean something, sometimes they don't. Sometimes it's just your brain decompressing. Who knows? Who knows? There's different things, right? But why do you think you have that dream?
So, like I said, that at that point, I had cut my parents off, like no contact for the first. And every time I would do that, which it's actually finally been successful this time, I haven't had any weird instances like that, but they would always try to get into contact with me. And then I wouldn't do it. I would not respond back. So it felt to me like kind of an attachment. You know what I mean? Like there was some sort of attachment being placed on me so that the ties weren't completely severed.
Okay, interesting. I have a buddy who not only there was a dream involved, but also an actual waking vision, if you will. They saw something attached to someone, but it just looked like another person for the most part. They weren't really there, but they saw them, if that makes sense. And a dream tied into this, and it just kind of all lined up. So I wonder sometimes if they're, I wonder, I just wonder about those kind of things because I like to say there's so much that we don't know, which is true. We know so little.
Mhm.
And people can say, "Hey, it's not real. It's just your brain." Your brain is powerful. It's a lot of just a bath of chemicals just figuring it out and processing things, but that's just what we think we know. That's what we know, right? That's what we think we know. I just think about those kind of things. Attachments showing up in the form of something kind of unsettling, a demon, a person holding on to you. So I look at something like this, what you're telling me, and I'm inclined to think it was something more than just a dream,
Mhm.
but who knows? That's what it comes down to. Who knows?
Well, yeah, and I can't confirm that either, but it's I think more so it's the feeling that was evoked for me out of the experience.
Right.
And then once I was able to finally make that clear cut, because they'll still text me occasionally, but there's really not a whole lot of contact, very, very little contact. And so I don't know what the difference was between then and now, but it just it was very scary in the moment for sure, and it felt a certain way, like, it gave me a feeling like, "Okay, somebody's trying to keep tabs on you somehow, some way."
Interesting. It's an odd way to do it.
100% is an odd way to do it.
Okay. After this, continue on. What happens next? Anything?
The next thing that happened was my attorney that had helped me with custodial type things in the past messages me because he, in fact, was a Mason with my father, and he was the
Oh,
reason or that was the reason why he was my attorney at the time.
okay.
And he calls me up one day, I'm at work, and he goes, "What the F is wrong with your father?" And I'm like, "I don't you're gonna have to be more specific than that." Well, apparently
Oh, man.
so
There.
anyways, there was this whole letter involved. I get a copy of the letter, and I have it I kept it in my purse. And when I didn't have my purse on me, which at the time I always took it to work, I took it everywhere I went, whatever. Whenever I didn't have it on me, it was still around me. So I would keep it either by my bed or I would put it like on the shelf in the closet if I was using a different purse or whatever. Well, one day that letter just disappeared.
Okay.
Literally no trace of that letter at all.
Okay.
And I was the only one aside from my kids when they would come over because, my ex and I, we split custody and stuff like that. But never once did I see them with the letter in their hand because it was always in that purse. And like I said, if I wasn't using that purse actively, it was on a shelf up high in my closet. I keep it in my purse because I wanted it to either be on my person at all times or because I wasn't supposed to have it.
Right.
So I either wanted it to be on my person at all times or somewhere that I knew that it wouldn't get misplaced.
Okay. So you were basically just keeping it for a security reason, but it seems like it was between your dad and the attorney, but you're thinking that some Freemasonry shenanigans went on and that's what caused this to disappear. That's the thought.
That is what I that's what I'm inclined to think, yes,
Yeah.
because there's no logical reason for that letter to have gone missing because my kids never had a hold of it. I never moved it unless it was from like, my purse being on the floor to being on the top shelf of the closet. And nobody else was ever really in my apartment that would just go and get a letter like that.
Right.
So,
Okay. So just more oddities, one on top of
right,
another.
right.
Okay. So that happens, and now we're getting a little bit more current in time. Anything
Mhm.
else popping up? I kind of want to, if you have any more information, I want to discuss these items that were left in the house when you moved in. But if there's
Yeah.
any other things between that and now, I'm here for it. Other than the mimic, we already heard the mimic too.
Right. So still related to when I was in that apartment, there was a hat. A hat ended up from somewhere into one of my shoes, which was really weird. I don't really know how to explain that. I don't know as though it's related to the Masons. It was just interesting to see. And then I saw this white moth hovering by the light in my dining room one day. And I was living with my ex-husband at the time. He didn't see the moss. It was only there for about maybe 2 minutes, and it disappeared, and I got the feeling that it was my grandfather, actually. So, that was interesting, and then there was another time like, when we moved into that apartment, actually, I had fallen asleep in the living room, kids are asleep upstairs. So, this is day 2 in the apartment, right? But so it was early that next morning, I think it was, like, a quarter to 6 in the morning, and I felt a nudge on my knee about maybe 30 seconds before my son started crying and waking up upstairs. So
Mother's
that was
intuition.
yeah, I would say that, but at the same time, why would I feel a nudge on my knee? Like, it was a very distinct, like, somebody did like that to my knee.
I mean, who knows, right?
I know, it's not really explainable,
Well, and
but
if I remember correctly, we had talked about you getting like small signs from what you believe to be your grandparents,
mhm,
uh, just to show like, "Hey, we're here," kind of things. Yeah. So could
mhm.
be one of those. Could be
And
nothing.
that's
Could be
really
something.
that's the feeling that I got from that one too. It didn't feel malicious in any way. It felt like, "Hey, go ahead and start waking up. Baby's about to be awake."
Well, that's
Kinda.
kind of I honestly I see it as progress. Less spooky occurrences, more just occurrences,
It was still spooky though, but yeah, I
not
mean,
malicious.
once you have heard the yeah, once you have a little bit of time to process, then you're like, "Oh, actually, I didn't have any reason to be scared of that one for sure." So,
Right. Well,
yeah.
shoot. Have we squeezed you for all the spooky? Are you juiced, dude? Are we caught up to the current day?
There was actually something that happened the other day.
Ooh,
So I had my kids were with me last week. I think it was a day or 2 before my oldest birthday party, and we're all 3 of us were on the couches. So the way I have my living room set up is I'll try to do this. You have the couch, you have a couch. I'm trying to couch and couch, right?
yeah.
And then on this side over here, probably about 2 feet away at the least, I have a piano in the corner with a piano bench.
Okay.
I had a couple things stacked on the piano bench, and one of those things just fell off by itself.
Piano benches be like that, I guess. Dang.
I guess so. I don't know what that is. I didn't get any specific feeling. I just said, "Hey, would you quit knocking stuff over? Thank you."
Yeah.
And I
Hey, come
just
on.
kept going.
I don't have time for this right now.
Exactly. I was
Uh,
like, "Dude, we're relaxing. Would you not try to scare me right now? Thanks."
Seriously. So, regarding all of these spooky experiences, and I'm kind of jumping around here, going back to your youth, why do you think these things were happening? The hand on the door, the boy in the room. Do you have any reason? Do you have anything that you think could have caused this, or maybe it was just a location, just a haunted house?
I don't necessarily think it was a haunted house because that's an awfully big coincidence for us to live consecutively 2 houses that
Yeah,
happen to be
yeah,
that seems like a huge
yeah,
coincidence.
yeah.
Yeah, coincidence is the best word, but I feel like probability. I was looking for probability. That's I mean, that the probability is pretty low for that, I think.
Right.
And so my opinion is more so that I don't want to dive too deep into it because it goes into different issues other than the paranormal, but I think that there was how do I want to phrase it?
Take your time.
So my father always wanted to have control over me since I was, I don't know, preteen, if not before then, probably forever. But I remember it starting really at preteen age. So I think that it really just ties back to that because it's always been an issue. If I wanted to go a different way than what he wanted, it was always a huge scene. And so I think that it kinda goes back to a sense of control kinda thing, which is why I feel like the Masons come into that too, because if you're stepping over into the occult, I don't know all of the ins and outs of the occult,
Right.
but I have heard things, you know what I mean? And if you have access to all these different ways of kind of getting what you want through, spells or rituals or whatever, it all kind of starts to make sense. And it doesn't have to be anything like blood rituals or anything like that because, words are spells, you
Okay.
know.
Yeah.
So, I mean, it could just be the act of speaking things into existence or whatever.
Manifestation.
Yeah. So I think those just kind of all tie into it. I don't know exactly why. I don't know what the whole reason for the obsession for control was. I don't know. But
Interesting.
I think it really just kind of ties back to that. And that's my opinion.
No, I see where you're coming from, and I've seen and heard things throughout my time doing this and just other experiences in life that make me a little more inclined to understand. I want to understand where you're coming from. And I think those connections or attachments, like you were saying, can be from a living person. I did an episode recently about someone I know that was cursed, possibly cursed. Strongly believe that they were. And it doesn't it doesn't have to be a ghost. It doesn't have to
Mm-mm,
be a dead person. And I think people don't usually think about that aspect of it, that it could just be a living attachment. Like you
mhm,
said, just words alone have power, manifestation, whatever you want to call it,
mhm.
speaking it into existence. Yeah, I can totally see where you're coming from on that. And it's very possible. And since you've cut ties and have very minimal attachment, as it were, do you see improvements? There's not as many spooky occurrences, like actually spooky in your face like they were when you were younger?
Nothing like when I was younger. I mean, I still have those instances where things will get knocked over and there's no cat around it, no dogs around it, no kids around it, and it just falls. Or, like I was telling you last time when I'm in the shower and I've got my music on my phone and it just cuts it down to below half volume
Right.
just out of nowhere. That's really weird. That's actually happened to me in the last week, week and a half as well again. And I always just say, you know what? I was listening to that. Quit it. And then I
Yeah.
reach out and I turn it back up and I just keep going with it.
That's definitely not as intense as the scary stuff that was happening when you were younger. I need to talk to some people about this waking vision that you told me about as well, because that one's got me stumped. I mean, not that I would understand any of this anyway, just talking about it, right? Hearing different people's
Which
perspective.
which was the one with the little boy or the one with the older lady and the
The
grandkids?
older lady and the kid, that one, because 'cause I've thought about that. It's been a few weeks, I've thought about that a lot, and I'm sure there's someone out there who could break that down for us, but I don't know. I don't know, we'll find out. But that one is one that stumps me the most as far as, like, why? Why that? Why
Mhm.
show you this weird scene, and what was the point? But again, those things, the hand, the boy, the older woman, those things are like I look at your timeline and the beginning is the scariest, honestly. And it goes kinda like this and leveled out. There's still occurrences like you're saying, but yeah, I'm happy for you.
I am too, because that whole negative energy that I would get, just like I mean, I can still pick up on negative energy when I go places, but as far as like being home, I don't have to worry about that negative energy anymore. So when something gets knocked over or when the music gets cut down, it just feels more like actually I don't really have a feeling that goes with it. I just feel annoyed because I'm like, hello, like,
Yeah.
could you not right now?
Yeah, it's more
So
annoying than anything else, just kind of a nuisance. And that's relatively that's nothing,
right.
that's easy work. You're just like it's basically a fly that you can't get rid of
Right. And
versus
it,
the
it
bee's
doesn't
nest
have
in
a
your
feeling
house.
of right, and it doesn't have, like, a feeling of, like, maliciousness either, so it's just I don't know if it's maybe just like, "Hey, remember, I'm still here," or I don't know exactly what it is, but I think that it's more benevolent or benign or however you wanna describe it than, negative, so
Yeah.
it's not anything that I really worry about.
Well, I find it all fascinating. You know this. And I appreciate you coming on and giving some more insight to your experience. Was there any
Yeah,
other aspect you wanted to dive into or discuss?
I don't think that I have anything, but you mentioned the objects a minute ago.
Oh, that's
Is
right.
that
Duh,
person
me.
you
I'm the one who brought that
yeah,
up. Yes, please. Coke clock
mhm.
and what was the other one? I forget.
It was an angel hanging oil lamp.
Angel hanging oil lamp, Coca-Cola
Mhm.
clock.
I no longer have those in my home. Because around the time with the mimic happenings, because remember, like I said, I had them in the other room, which is where my dining room is, and we had the activity happening on the main floor of the house. And then when, my ex-girlfriend was telling me, "Hey, this is what's happening. Like, did you call me, et cetera, et cetera?" And I was like, "No." And I would walk into the other room and I would feel drawn to those objects. And I'm like,
Mhm.
okay. So what we're gonna do is we're gonna take those objects and put them in the basement. And so I did. And then the next thing I know, she's telling me, I just heard your name coming from the basement. And I'm going, okay, those are gone like pronto. So we loaded them up in the back of her car. I took them to my ex-husband's mother because remember, I bought the house from my ex-husband's grandmother. So I returned them to the grandmother's daughter. And I said, "You can give these back to Granny. Here you go. You left these."
Probably on purpose. They're like, that damn clock.
Maybe, but I don't know. I don't know if maybe they just forgot them or if maybe they just were like, "Oh, maybe she'll want them," or whatever. But it did not take but maybe 2 months for me to be like, "No, those have to go,
Right.
like, now."
And you've never heard from them since?
From
From the family, the other members of the family?
No, I mean, I haven't I still talk to my ex's mom because she's my kid's grandmother.
Right.
But I mean, in specifically regarding the objects, no,
Yeah.
I have no idea. I don't know if they sold them. I don't know if they're just stored in her mother's house. I don't know where they are. So,
I thought you were gonna be like, "Yeah, I gave him to Goodwill. It's someone else's problem."
and that thought didn't even cross my mind at the time. I was just like, you know what? These are Granny's things. She might want these back. I sure as heck don't
Yeah.
want.
Imagine if she left them there on purpose, though. She's like, "I know those are haunted. I'm not taking them with me. They're your problem."
You know, I could kind of see her doing that because I think that she was sensitive. But
Oh.
I also don't think that, well, I don't know. She may have not been entirely happy with me because I divorced her grandson.
Hmm.
So she could have had motive to do that. I don't know for sure if that's what she did, but I mean, I could see it.
Is she still with us?
Yeah, yeah, she's in an assisted living home, but yeah, she is
I was gonna
on.
say reach out and just say, "Hey, were these things haunted? Were you messing with me?"
Well, I would, but she's really going through dementia right now. She's really getting up there in age, and so I don't think it would be. And plus, I
Right.
think I would have to probably go through my ex's mom to go see her. So it would just really turn out to be more
Sounds like a
effort than what.
hassle.
Oh yeah,
Yeah.
yeah,
Yeah.
more effort than what it's worth for sure.
Right. Well, maybe warn your ex's mom, say, "Hey, I think these things were haunted and I gave them back to you guys, just in
And she
case
and I
anything weird has
actually
been happening."
That'd be crazy because, you know, she and I just actually got back on the good terms recently. So I don't know. I guess I could. She'd probably just tell me that she put him in Granny's house and, you know, everything's just still stored in there, which nobody's currently living in that house of because Granny moved out to the nursing home. So I think it's just kind of acting as a storage unit. And, you know, that might be where it belongs. I don't know.
Right.
So glad it's not here.
If a house is haunted, but there's no one there to be haunted, does it even count, kind of
Right.
thing? Like, what
Right.
do they do? You're like, "Oh, there's no one here to scare. This is
Well,
boring."
hey, you know what? One of my you know what? That's funny because whenever I watch paranormal videos, because I watch them a lot, like on YouTube and stuff, Overnight Channel, I like to watch them. I like to watch Sam and Colby do their paranormal stuff and everything like that. And it always
Unholy
cracks me
Vibes
up.
podcast on YouTube.
And
Right.
unholy, do you do like investigations?
No, I just do the interviews with people.
Right, right.
That's it.
So I like to watch the investigations too.
I actually
And so
am going to sorry, just so you
no, you're
know,
good.
I did an episode about a haunted theater in California that
Uh,
has several entities there that multiple people are like, "Yeah, this place is haunted as shit." And I talked to one of the ladies who works there. It's called Stage Fright is the episode's title. I'm going
okay.
to California to tour the haunted theater after it's closed, so I'm pretty excited.
Right.
Yeah,
I am excited for you. That'll be fun.
yeah,
That'll be fun.
maybe.
I'm sure it will. I'm sure it will.
Anyway,
So I
sorry.
like watching. No, you're good. You're good. That's awesome for you. I love that. So I like to watch these investigations, and it's so funny because they always ask like basically the same questions. And so if there's nobody in the house to be haunted, maybe it's just that they don't get barraged by the same questions over and over and over.
Okay, yeah, fair. That's kinda funny.
I always think about, like, if I were that ghost, how annoyed would I be if I'm sitting there for hundreds of years, right?
"Is
You
anyone
know
there?
right, and I'm
Can you
going,
turn the light on if you're here?"
"I did this, like, 2 days ago. I'm not doing this again." You know,
Yeah, yeah, annoying ghost out of haunting. They're like, "You know what? I'm done."
yeah, "I'm just gonna set the whole place on fire. How about that? Is that"
Yeah,
I
there we
don't know,
go.
but
Yeah.
right.
Oh, geez, what happens when you destroy a building that a ghost is haunting?
I don't really know. They might just attach themselves to you at that point or try to.
Well, let me get your thoughts on this. Again, previous episode about a haunted nursing home
Mhm,
that has been torn down since
mhm,
it only got torn down, like, a little while ago, not that long ago, but distinctly haunted. Many
mhm.
experiences between many staff members, but where does that all go? The construction worker, do they dissipate? Who knows? That's what I like to think about. Where do those ghosts go?
Yeah. It's very possible that they just remain on the land, and then whenever something is rebuilt on the land, they just I mean, because honestly, like, think about it, because there was an episode of, Sam and Colby Francis that I was watching. I forget exactly where they went. I'll have to look that up and then let you know, but they had this other investigator on with them, and they were talking about the concept of time because, time he was saying that time is like a human kinda construct. I think we
Right.
talked about that on the
We
last one.
definitely did.
Yeah.
I brought up the whole True Detective, time is a flat circle, like
Yeah.
everything's happening
Yeah.
kind of all at once.
Yeah, and so they may just be operating like it's whatever year that they were, alive. Kinda like a what do they call it on ghost hunters? A residual haunting, So, like, they're just doing what they do back in the day or whatever.
Loop.
They may just be doing that, and then, they have something else built and put up there, and then they just keep doing what they're doing. And maybe they get a little bit conscious about, certain things happening.
Hey,
Maybe they're like, "Oh, wait, what was that? Who are you?" I don't
hey,
know.
you're a ghost. Oh, geez. Imagine being a ghost and not realizing it, and then realizing it. Like, wait a
Yeah.
second. I've been on repeat for years. Be very disappointing, I think.
That would be mind blowing. And at that point, like, what are you gonna do? Like, you're just stuck there forever. Well, I
Maybe.
mean, not necessarily, but potentially. We don't know exactly what happens on the other side. So,
Yeah, maybe the realization that you're dead helps you move on. I don't know. Or you get really pissed off and then you start haunting people for fun. So who
right.
knows? Like
Or you just see it as an opportunity to haunt people for fun. Two
if
different
you're
people.
if you're a cheeky little ghost, you know?
Right.
Well,
Right.
that's funny. I just love the speculation of it all because again, we don't know. We don't
Hmm.
know. So to me, it's like, yeah, it's fun to just it's all fan theory for the most part, or whatever you want to call it. Yeah, I'm a fan. It's theory. Okay. Anyway, I just love like digging into these things that no one really understands. It's all speculation. It's all just like potentially nonsense. And I talked to some people recently that were like just straight up so like the best way to put it is atheist in the way that it's like, yeah, there's just nothing. There's just
Hmm.
nothing. It's not just no God. There's no ghost. There's no spirits. Anything spooky that happens, there's probably some logical explanation. And you know what? They might be right, but that's boring. So
It, it
we don't
is
like boring.
It is boring, but at the same time, me personally, I have a hard time believing that just because of the things that I've been through, the things that I've experienced and seen.
Yeah.
And I mean, maybe I'm just not thinking about it at all angles. It's possible. But at the same time, a candle falling off of a dresser with no outside
Oh,
force to
yeah.
push it off and then spinning in the floor. That's an awfully big coincidence. I'm just saying, atheist, explain that one.
Yeah. Explain that. I love that. Well, shoot, Anna, I think we've covered all the bases. Do you feel like we've adequately covered all the goods?
Mhm. Absolutely.
Well, thanks again for coming on. Go ahead and retell your plugs, your TikToks, your social medias, all that fun stuff. Let people know where they can find you and so on.
Yeah, so my, TikTok is Zacchaeus11, and then Instagram is Zacchaeus, and YouTube is also Zacchaeus. So Zechius, and then with a 1 at the end on TikTok.
Perfect. Check Anna
Yeah.
out. She posts pretty darn often. She goes live pretty often. She's
Mhm.
a fun, friendly face to participate with in a live. Always has good stories, has good conversation. Be sure to check her out. Also, be sure to check out Unholy Vibes on TikTok, Instagram, YouTube. All of those are at Unholy Vibes Pod. You can also email unholyvibespod@gmail.com. Send in your spooky stories or, let me know if you want to come on the show. Refer someone. Anna, if you know anyone with other spooky stories, send them my way. If you
Right.
ever run into
Right.
any other people that are like, I've got a crazy ass ghost story for you, or not a ghost story, but something scary, terrifying. I
Yeah.
was chased by a murderer, whatever. I want to hear.
Good
Uh
lord, I would like to hear that one too, actually. That's
Go listen to
I
episode 1 of my show. So anyway, yeah, reach out. You all know if you've listened to the show before, I am in it for the love of the game. I just love all things spooky and unsettling and uncomfortable. So reach out, DM me, whatever you need to do, reach out. I want your stories. I would love to have you on the show. and look forward to a lot more fantastic content coming your way. Thank you all for listening. Remember, stay spooky, and we'll see you next time.